Mark today?
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
he did give me some notes for the
And me
IDA.
for LDC.
Okay,
Yep.
Pretty
He is,
simple,
he is having,
Medical procedure.
okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Glens Falls Industrial Development Agency Board meeting. It's November 14th, and we have a quorum here. We are missing a few of our members. Mary Gooden, Mayor Collins, and Dr. Cordes are not able to join us today, but we do have a quorum with myself, Denise Conklin, Jane Reed, and Tim Larson are all here. We're also joined by our staff and advisors and consultants, and we're ready to go. In terms of administrative reports, I'm going to turn this right over to Jeff to give his report, and I have nothing to add at this moment.
Okay, I don't know if we want to just move up the project report, if we can do that to the.
And do that, sure.
Do that here.
Sure.
Because the main order of business, I guess, for us is, you should have all received a copy, I know it came a little bit late, parts of it, of the IDA, the application for tax support from Crew Coffee. You know, this process has been going on for a while. They've purchased the property on Luzerne Road at Tech Meadows, the first property that has been sold since the pipe fitters, plumbers and pipe fitters union back in the early 2000s. So this has been about a 20-year process. As you can imagine, there are additional costs that are incurred because of this. Part of it has to do with, of course, is the size of the lots. So Crew's buying a lot that's a little bit in excess of what they actually need, but in the interest of expediency and opportunity for expansion, quite frankly, down the road, they were happy to buy the entire lot. They paid the appraised value for that, or the assessed value for that. They're looking for, there's additional costs that become incurred also, as you guys know, the relationship between the city and the LDC and the town of Queensbury, who has influence. We had a design meeting that sort of some of the members here and participated with, along with the
which is on the LDC agenda.
Which is on the LDC agenda. That said, some of these additional costs sort of create the need for some tax support to try and make this project work. So the application you have, which is fairly standard, includes the budget that they have, some of the benefits that we have, for example, the value of a pilot and the sales tax exemption have to yet to be determined, right? Because they don't see them.
No, did everybody get a copy of the resolution? I didn't see it get circulated via email.
No.
Okay, so we have that resolution here, and let me pass that around. And let me also just add to what Jeff is saying in terms of the project cost. So the total project cost is over $1.3 million. The exact number is $1,324,700. The total public incentives that are being considered here would be $155,198.
Can we break that out? Because
Yes.
some of that is mortgage tax exemption, actually a large part of that is mortgage tax exemption, which would have minimal benefit to our taxpayers anyway. So
And so
I
this
don't want it
is
to sound like we're, you know.
Yeah, it's
And we can only grant a 1% on mortgage tax. The county has to collect 0.25% because of the CDTA involvement.
Right.
so
So we have to make that change on our application eventually.
Okay.
yeah. So it's a
But we've informed them of that, what the number can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know.
Yeah.
Okay.
so the it would be a 7-year pilot, which is our standard. It would be the first 4 years would be 50%. I'm sorry, 100%, and then the last 3 years would be 50%. And the estimated value of the pilot is $107,576. The estimated value of sales tax incentive is $35,700. And based on what Kara just said, the estimated value of the mortgage tax incentive is $11,922.
Right, and it's worth keeping in mind that like the parcels that we just sold to Venaccio for South Street, these are currently untaxed parcels.
Right.
Right, so they're not something that's being, they're not really a, I guess we could look at it as a tax break, but really it's a.
It's not a
lesser
revenue
tax
loser.
increase.
Not a revenue loser.
Right, it's a-
Something we're,
It's a
really
tax
proud of.
generating arrangement, I guess
Right.
we'd say, that gets them up to full taxation, as Judy said in year
It's
8.
a pilot that is actually revenue positive.
That's right.
It's
Right.
revenue positive, and we're easing them into full tax, which helps to make the financing possible.
Right.
The project work.
And to the extent that they pay the assessed or appraised value of the property anyway, so the
Right,
base value at the beginning on is what they're gonna be taxed
Right,
at
they'll
anyway.
pay the taxes on that amount,
Yep.
plus any special district taxes that are added.
Assessed by the-
And how they are the ones that you get contracted through the town too as well.
Right, and for those who don't know what that is, because the city property uses Queensberry services, EMS, fire, sewer, water, the hookups to sewer and water, which actually end up, much of that I think is our supply, but they're through Queensberry. Each one of the properties, the LDC has actually been paying that for the properties. And so that will also be less of a burden on the LDC once the property sells and once the process goes through, because those charges, which are charged to the LDC by Queensberry, will be turned around to the property owner.
Correct.
So it'll be likely a savings of those Queensberry taxes of about $1,500 to $2,500 a year to the LDC,
Yeah.
because we're selling the building. We're selling,
The lot.
the parcel. Yes.
I
All
think
good.
that the most important part of this is that we've finally sold another parcel, and that you're gonna it's creating jobs there, which is what we wanted
Yep.
on that site. And we
100%.
wanted some type of manufacturing or development going on there. And this is a very unusual, new kind of business, I think, and creating a product that seems to be very hot on the market. So we'll see. Hopefully that.
Hot.
Hot.
Ha.
Hot.
That was
I think it's
right.
actually cold brew.
Tongue in cheek.
Oh,
Right, tongue in cheek.
Oh,
Right, exactly. That's what it- yeah, I was there. I was there.
Roasting beans there,
That's
though,
right.
right?
That's
Yeah,
true.
so it's hot and cold.
Hot and cold. So.
Warms you
that-
up, cools you down.
So what we're doing today, though, and Jeff, and I want to get back to you, but we're gonna go to a public hearing on this, and this is what we're proposing today, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Correct.
So
Yes,
go
and I
ahead.
just wanted to follow up just by saying that, as you, I believe there are, in addition to the city's comprehensive plan, there's also comprehensive plans going on in Queensberry and the county. And this, from what we've gathered from the town at least, this seems consistent with their goals along that corridor as well,
corridor, right.
so.
Yep, 100%.
And we're working with them on some modifications to the rest of Tech Meadows, maybe for some zoning options that we've been looking at, but this isn't affected by that.
So that we don't have to wait another 20 years before we sell another property.
So the resolution today that's before you is to accept this application, basically, and to move forward with the project by allowing for a public hearing to occur. This gives us even additional time as well, should we have more questions. And so I know that everybody got these documents related to the application and the financing part earlier this week, but you're going to have plenty more time before the public hearing and at the public hearing for our members as well as the public to raise questions if you have some. But we've kind of summarized it here, and I'm happy to take questions if you have any. No? Okay.
Yeah, straightforward.
No, okay. So, if there are none, we have the resolution put before us. Is there a motion to accept it?
So
as
moved.
presented? Is there a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion is passed. There are no nays, no objections or abstains, and so we are moving it forward. And Jeff, you'll notify
Yes, I'll notify
folks,
Kyle.
and we'll get this public hearing on the record.
I shall.
And get
And he
this-
should appear at the hearing.
For the hearing.
Yeah, we
sure.
want them at the
Absolutely.
hearing, absolutely. We're doing it here at this location, I think?
Sure.
Okay.
Be consistent.
Okay. Do you want to do Market Square, Market Center, or do you?
Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll cover those, because really, well, a couple of things. As you know, at the last meeting of this body, we approved an application to make an application to the EPA for a brownfield opportunity grant. After going through with Jim Thatcher on the application guidelines, because the city had an existing grant, it looked like it was the path of I don't want to say least resistance, the path of best opportunity, right, was to have the city be the applicant again, because the grant we currently have is still open. And the IDA may end up being a partner in this process as we go through, but it just seemed like a more expedient and appropriate avenue to take, just looking at how they score things and who the entities are that apply. So we've gone ahead, we submitted that yesterday. So we had some funding available from ARPA, money that we had earmarked at the city level to do that. So the IDA obviously will still be involved in this process as we go forward. We've really identified in the application the two, excuse me, brownfield opportunity area corridors as sort of the highlights of what we're hoping to put our efforts in. A lot of the funding that's available for this grant is not only for assessment of properties, but is also for remediation planning, and although it doesn't pay for cleanup itself, also for reuse planning. So if you want to sort of imagine how properties can be reused, a lot of that planning can be used from this money. It's a $500,000 grant, and it's supposed to go over about 4 years.
And remind us of the two locations?
Well, we actually picked up about 6 locations, but the primary ones, of course, are Lehigh. We looked at Lehigh. We were looking at, we were actually looking at the property on South Street that I wanted to mention briefly, that you guys know may have a contract on it now, one of the two. We were also looking at the possible reuse of the joint to the lime quarry. We were looking at the possible reuse of the armory. I think these are all possibilities, right? These are places that may have some remediation issues, but either way, they could be engaged. We could engage in some sort of planning activities and have some funding for that.
Right.
So I think there's some really nice opportunities that we've got for a lot of these properties.
And so the city already has a state brownfield opportunity area. I'm not sure if that's what your question was, that goes
I wanted to
basically
know
from,
what the new ones were.
okay,
Yeah.
so from Glen Street all the way out to the city line on South and then,
Oh, I'm sorry, you said
South and
two, I think
Broad.
the 2 properties.
So the next, and the other one that we're applying for, that we've gotten the grant for, but not the state contract, is from the Circle. Basically, all of Ward 1, for all intents and purposes, would be the second brownfield opportunity area that we're applying for. So we've done, it's a 3-step process, we're in step 3 to get that named as a brownfield opportunity area, which opens up state funding, but this would then come in on top of that or underneath.
And BOAs, one of the things you can do with a BOA is if you identify properties with problems, you can get some cleanup money from the state, along with the feds, but that's just, this particular grant doesn't pay for actual cleanup. You really have to sort of identify sites when you get to that point. But this is sort of set us in place in case we have properties that have some remediation. As you guys know, that sort of leads to one of the issues that we have right down the street here, right, with the Foothills Builders, who've had some challenges with the property right down the street, the Peggy Gerard's property at, the address is escaping me, at Warren, right here.
Right.
And we're still working to help them. Potentially looking at another Restore New York grant with that, but that we're hoping that project will move forward. But that has been one of them that we've supported with this grant thus far. And if there were substantial cleanup issues, it doesn't look like there are, but if there were, we could, once the BOA is established, we could sort of apply for funding there.
Well, and this is the benefit of us working in our other capacities together.
Correct.
To do, to apply for grants that look like they're needed, that will either layer on top of or that will come in and gear together. The city at the moment has $17 million in grants that Jeff and I are managing in a wide variety of areas. So this is it's good for us to be able to have the kind of the bigger picture to be able to see that. And I say us, I mean, for economic development, it's mostly Jeff.
So we're not directly involved, but we're indirect, and you'll keep us advised, and it could lead to some specific projects that could come our way. Okay.
And I think it's a great opportunity. And, you know, this would be the third or fourth version of this grant that we've had. And we can point to dozens of projects.
So,
A dozen projects at least that have benefited from this.
update on Market Center?
Yeah, you guys have probably seen, of course, there's a lot of work going on right now. You know, the real challenge seems to be as things sort of coalesce, meaning Venatio starts getting moving and the city is sort of well along its way. You know, suddenly these small issues that come up, especially when you have adjacent buildings and there's problems that have been caused. You know, one lot has caused another problem, and it's a challenge, but I think we're going to be able to work through it. The real issue now, as far as trying to finish, is the weather, right? Because we've got the Market Center structure and everything's going to be finished, but they were trying to wait, you know, because of Venatio working on the adjacent buildings exteriors, right? You didn't want to be paving the whole site and then have them sort of trampling all over it with equipment and things. But now as we get to cold weather, which we now have, you know, we may be looking at spring before we can sort of finish the site itself. So, I mean, while the structure will certainly be finished probably before the end of the year, you know, there'll be some delays. We're hoping to get everything up and running by spring, which is when we'd be looking at things anyway, as far as, you know, real use of the property. You know, Venatio, they've had some challenges. I was down with them about a week and a half ago in the basement of Hot Shots, and as we were sitting at the wall, in the basement wall, I was looking out at the Pocket Park lot, right through the wall, or what was supposed to be the wall. The basement wall had essentially collapsed. A lot of that was I wouldn't say collapsed, parts of it had come down, and a lot of that seems to have been caused. Remember, there was a building there at one point, right? The Juice and Jar building was there. Somehow that must have prevented water from getting down into this old building. Now the building was taken away. So for 5-6 years, there's been water and you know, seepage going down through the lot that we had prepared. You know, the restored grant had put the retaining wall there, but there's water that had gone down through there. So now we're just trying to make sure that, you know, as they're working on this wall, that the park that we have there that has greenery and plants and trellises and things is not going to sort of, we have to create a barrier sort of to make sure that water is not going to sort of go back underneath there into what is now sort of an open lot. It's ironic because it's
So you
drainage.
need a French drain? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're getting some
Sure.
flashing and a retaining wall, and you know, because we're going to have greenery on a sort of a trellis system along that, well, not on the wall, but you know, near it. And we just need to make sure that we're doing that as they go along.
I don't know if you've gone by, but in the last week and a half since maybe you were there, they're working on the side of that building.
Yes, they put up the zip panels or whatever they are.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be able to finish their work out there on the exterior until the spring as well.
Okay.
So, you know, it's going to look like there's some of the, you know, the Pocket Park, as you know, was the driving deadline behind this whole project as the DOS part of this grant. We've managed to get that extended until April at an 11th hour request because they understood that we were moving forward and that as we have these 3 different construction projects going on simultaneously, the Market Center, the Pocket Park, and Venatio's buildings, that some things have to happen first. There's nothing you can do about it other than undoing work you're doing. So it's been a challenge, but it seems as if everybody's sort of on the same page as far as getting all this done.
Okay. Anything new on Market Square?
Well,
besides what
just
you said?
the ancillary things, you know, we're starting to take a look at, you know, in my office in City Hall, we're starting to take a look at all the development that's been going on there. You know, and if you really want to go back far enough to, let's say, when the DRI was announced, we want to sort of take an inventory of all the work that's been done, which interestingly begins with Chris Patton, right? And maybe in some ways bookends, because he was the first sort of developer who looked at the building at, was it 236 to 239 on the corner of Smith and Glen, and bought that building, which was fairly, it wasn't, I don't know if I would call it dilapidated, but it was in pretty rough shape. I think they had the printing business in there. I think Mikado's early version was in there. But, you know, he had actually done a lot of work on that. You know, that was around 2018. Of course, you had the bank who did their, you know, 2 huge projects. One, the expansion where the Madden Hotel was, and then the most recent sort of upgrade to their buildings. You know, more recently, Ryan Connor and his purchase of Union Square. I mentioned that because there's a very good likelihood that he'll be coming to this body to look for some help as he moves forward. He's trying to expand to build about 20 apartments in the back side of that in the top 2 floors. I think he spoke to us, I think. at one
Yep,
point.
he did.
It runs, all these things, my meetings, people run together sometimes. And then, as you probably heard, the most recent one, and again, the Golden Monkey, that building that they constructed, opened around the time we began our construction. But the most recent one, of course, being, Chris Patton has a contract to purchase both 4656, the building across the street from Hot Shots, as well as the Rite Aid building. I haven't seen plans yet, but we'll look at some opportunities there. I don't think he's nailed down his financing yet, but I know he's under the gun from some other projects. But I think what we should really look at is the work that he did at Smith and Glen. I mean, I
South
think
and Glen.
South and Glen. I'm sorry. And he's looking for that building particularly to restore that building, and probably would need substantial help at a number of levels, I would think, to make that happen. But again, he's also bought the Rite Aid building. Presumably, he would tear that down. I don't think there would be huge uproar about removing the Rite Aid building, but that's where. And I think one of the reasons he had looked at these in combination is for parking. I've discussed with a number of developers, maybe because that 4656 building doesn't have any parking, and it's not required because it's in the CCD. Typically developers have said, well, you may not require it, but my tenants will. And so we had talked at various times about the possibility of the Clinton Street garage, which the city has some control of, maybe. But he's looking at an alternative which would provide parking on the Rite Aid lot for both of the buildings, the tenants in both buildings. So we'll see where that goes, but I think it's just an indication of how substantial the catalyst of the DRI has been, to all the projects going downtown on South Street. And we're going to try and work in my office, work on some summarization of all the things that that the DRI and associated funding support has catalyzed.
Well, I would encourage you guys, when you're working with Patton, encourage him to maybe improve his design. Some of the biggest criticism I've heard from people in the city is the design.
But you're talking about his new buildings, right?
Right.
Yeah.
He's talking about restoring this facade, so.
Well, tearing down Rite Aid and putting something
Well,
there,
that's a different story, right.
that's,
Yeah.
maybe.
That's-
Yeah, and again, I haven't seen.
You're in the middle of our core downtown area where this body and the LDC have spent a lot of time and resource to improve South Street, and you want something that's nice
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because
that fits in.
there's a world in which I think we would all agree a few years from now, that's how you expect people will come into the city, right? Rather than going down around to the roundabout, by the hospital, it may well be that your first entrance into downtown is at that corner, right? And so obviously you want to have a nice sort of entrance as you go into the
Would
city.
reduce some traffic at the circle too.
Yeah.
If we could go that way.
Yeah.
Anyways. All right,
Um,
so I know it's not here listed, but the other Bonaccio project, the 9% tax credit project on the farmer's market site, is that closed yet?
They're looking to close in December from the last I
They
heard
are?
from Larry Novick, yeah. So
Okay.
they're hoping to break ground in the beginning of the year, but to close in December.
Okay, if you could get a date for us at the
Sure.
December meeting, it'd be good to know.
Sure.
That's on the old farmer's market site?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
The pavilion lot, right?
Yeah.
The parking lot. Yeah, I know. I know.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
What?
The parking.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It's needed.
It's bad now. We've lost, because we lost so much with the construction that's going on. I'll just walk to work.
Yeah, no,
We're all gonna have to, Denise.
this is an issue we've been aware of for several years and have been trying to sort of, take different approaches.
How many parking studies have there been done in the
There's
last
been
20
several,
years?
and they say there's no problem right now. And we keep
They've
saying,
all
we know
said
it
there's
right
no
now.
No,
problem.
and you know what, but
Right,
I've
but-
been working downtown for almost 20 years, and if there was something major going on at the Civic Center, then you kind of knew it was gonna be a problem. It has not truly been if you leave, you're not getting anything when you come back
Yeah.
at lunch until
Now.
I just walked now, I just.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any more project reports?
No.
We already did a resolution for
Yep.
Tech Meadows, so I'm gonna go back to administrative reports. We had the minutes from the regular meeting that was held on October 10th, 2024. I've gone through those, I have no changes. Does anyone here have any questions or changes? There being none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? There being none, the minutes are approved. We'll get those posted. The financial report, we have the, for 10 months of the year ending October 31, 2024. Mark is not with us today, but
I can give you
Jeff,
just a
do you have
real
any
quick,
comments?
so a real quick summary of the activity in October, not much, of course. The large one, of course, is that we got the Bonacho check for the IDA support there for $69,430. Bank interest primarily on the CDs that we have invested, $592. Expenses, the CEO for the third quarter cost was $1,562, and Mark Toomey's 40% cost for September was $266.
Do we have any CDs coming up for renewal?
Two just did.
Okay.
But I discussed with Mark that we should probably add much of these funds to those, this nearly $70,000.
Okay. Rates are what, maybe around 4.7?
Yeah, about 4.5 still.
4.5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
All right.
they're holding because rates seem to be holding. For
Okay.
better or worse.
Any questions on the financial report? There being none, is there a motion to accept the financial report for October 31, 2024 as presented?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And no nays, no abstentions, so the financial report is approved and we'll get that posted too. We have two payment of bills. We have Mark Toomey, $308, and Fitzgerald Morris Baker Firth, $432, for a total of $740. Is there a motion to approve payment of the bills?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Sorry.
So if you
There are no nays or abstentions, so we are approved for payment of bills and we'll get those paid. I have no other business and I don't think we have need for executive session. Let's see. We'll have a meeting on December 12th unless something special comes up, but I think that'll
And
be it.
scheduling the public hearing, Kara, do we have to give a certain amount of time to get that on?
Yeah, I'll send all the information and then I'll send you a copy of the notice, but we can publish it and we have to get it in at 10 days, and then at the same time, we have to send it to all the taxing jurisdictions, and there's a whole laundry list of people, so we usually put that together. I can tell you if you prefer to do it.
No, not at all. I guess my question was going to be, is this something that we would want to schedule with the next meeting? And I should check with them to make sure that's fine with them.
Yeah, I would say, I did reach out to their attorney, I think it was yesterday, and said it was on the agenda of your plan. It was, my understanding would be, move forward to the public hearing, and I told him what date, but I would double check with him and then come back to me and let me know
Okay.
if that date doesn't work and we have to pick a different date.
But right now it's December 12th.
Well, we'll look at December 12th.
Well, the resolution says that it allows the chair to set a date, so a date
We're
and
gonna set
time.
the date because that fits with all of our timeline requirements, so
Yeah.
let's get it done.
Just tell me when you
Okay.
help.
They're planning on closing actually the week of the 16th.
Right, so
They
So
would
we can
like,
schedule it
you,
then
for the
instead.
12th, right?
yeah,
Beautiful.
that's fine. And I've coordinated with their attorney, so I said I will get documents together and stuff. Just, I guess we want to make sure they're available to come to the meeting. That would be
Great.
the only thing.
So Kara, Jeff, and I will finalize that, but we'll try to keep it on the 12th, so it's the same as our next board meeting if possible, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, guys. All right, motion to adjourn the IDA meeting.
So moved.
Second, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
LDC.
LDC, good morning. I'm Denise Conklin, filling in for Mayor Collins this morning. Opening up the Greater Glens Falls Local Development Corporation, still November 14th. We do have a quorum, and welcome to advisors and guests. So I'd like to move along right to get the administrative reports out of the way. Everyone should have received the minutes from the October 10th meeting. Is there any questions or corrections? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carries, thank you. The financial report for the 10 months ending October 31st.
Right, so the only,
Grab me a pen, please.
oh, sure. So the only, there was a little bit of activity in October. $1,000 reimbursement for work that Flatley Reed did to do lead paint checks for us. Was $1,000. We had paid that and then asked the state for reimbursement under one of the DRI grants, and we received that. We did it in September. We received it in October. And then the LDC received $5,000 from the sale of Union Square. Apparently in 2020, there was a LDC financial support for the Union Square building. And it was a 5-year forgivable loan, and they got through 4 years and sold it. So the contract states that we recover 20% each year.
Right.
So the final year was $5,000. So we received that in. And then expenses in October were the CEO wage for $1,562, the monthly insurance for $1,282, and then Mark Toomey's payroll, which is 60% of his costs to LDC pays 60, IDA pays 40, that was $399. And just for the board's understanding, in December, Mark is preparing a report on the insurances that we have been paying on 36 Elm and others, to inform you what we can cancel, what we're going to need to move on with, and that kind of thing. So we'll have, hopefully, a full report in December. That's my anticipation, and that's the financial report.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I just have one question.
Sure.
In December, when we meet, could you give us an update on where we stand with the USDA in total?
Absolutely.
I know that Flight on South is now fully paid, and so I don't think we have any outstanding loans under USDA.
We do not.
But we did have one loan that went bad, and so I know that we have to make annual payments to USDA.
Right, which happened in October.
And we already did that,
Which-
so.
Is not here. Maybe they happen in November.
Maybe
So
it
at
did.
some point during the next month or two. And actually, I think I can give it to you right now. So there's $166,141 in the USDA relending account, right, which is the bank account that we hold that money in.
Okay.
The total owed to USDA is somewhere in the neighborhood of 110
Okay.
or 100,000. So each year we pay 10, I think it's 10,000. It's a 1% interest over, 400 years or whatever USDA gave us. I can have the exact numbers, but the short answer is that we'll likely at the end of the term have some of that money. We'll have some excess that can then be used for projects.
Okay, so we've recovered from that loss.
Correct. Yep.
Is what I
Yep.
wanted to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's reflective of the flight loan that was.
Correct. Yep, that's, I believe that's, and again, Mark knows 100%, but I believe that's full reimbursement.
Okay.
I mean, that that's full, that
Payback.
there are no, right, that there are no, nothing else coming in, and at the moment, nothing else going out.
Okay.
In December, as we're talking about this, we would like to propose that the LDC take a portion of its, let's call it restricted funds, but a portion of its funding, let's say unrestricted funds is what I
Yeah.
meant, and do the same thing the IDA did, which is put them into 3-month, 6-month CDs and earn some better interest than we are. The bank account right now, I think, is earning 1/4% or a 0.5% interest. No offense.
Okay.
So the upshot though is that for the next couple of years, it makes sense to take that money, especially the USDA money, if we don't have an active project,
Yeah.
and move it in so that we can gain some interest
Yeah.
on that money, but have it available within 3 months to be able to pull it out if we need to. So we'll do that in December as well.
We will just need to know what the early withdrawal penalty would be on that, just in case something big comes up in 3 months or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Just- okay.
And as you know, I serve on the ESD board for the mayor, and they go through the same issue, and they recently did a review again of interest rates, and I think that they got it something a little bit above 4.5%. So if you want to talk to Deanne about that, she could share
Okay.
the information
That's
she
good.
has with you.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mark and I will do that. So the next item, if you don't mind, the
We
next
actually
item.
still need to approve the financial
Oh, sorry,
reports.
that's right, I apologize.
It's okay.
I'm moving forward, TikTok, so.
I move to approve the financial report.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Look at me, I'm so full of myself today.
Do we want to move on to Form 990?
So Mark sent out to all of you, I believe it was yesterday morning, the Form 990, which is it is an important form that the government requires for all nonprofits. It is also a restatement of the audit of all of the information that was reviewed and approved in the LDC's audit. We sent it to you with the idea of taking a look at it and see if you have any objections to any of the pieces or any of the descriptions and funding and everything else like that. Which I don't believe there should be, but I'm happy to take them.
Had our auditor applied for an extension of 5 years?
Yes. Yep.
That's good.
Yep. And that 8873, which I think is the form number, is around somewhere. I didn't send it out.
It's okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
That's a big penalty if
Yeah.
you.
No, we are well aware. So, and because Mark prepared it, the LDC saved about half the cost
Yeah.
to have that done. So, are there any questions or concerns about that document or what was filed?
Do you need a resolution?
We need to
do.
approve it so that I can
Yeah.
It's
file
due to
it.
be filed tomorrow, so we do need a resolution that we approve the filing of it.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Very
you.
good, thank you. Mark will be happy.
Make sure a copy goes to our auditor too, if it hasn't already.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, moving on to disbursement of grant funds regarding the new bookstore downtown. Just one more chapter.
Right, so this is the bookstore that we, I think at the September meeting, proposed that we would give them an 80/20 reimbursement grant of up to $20,000 granted for $25,000 in expenses. They have gone through, and Suzanne and Jeff have worked with them to get that set and acceptable so that all of the receipts match. I believe the total receipts that they gave us was somewhere in the neighborhood of $26,100 or $25,900. So we're satisfied that they met the requirement in order to get the $20,000 reimbursement back. And so what we're asking for is for you to approve the reimbursement, and then we'll approve the check under Schedule A.
So how much are we giving them?
$20,000.
$20,000.
And that's what they asked for, or
Yeah.
that's what
Yes,
their need
yeah,
was?
yeah. Yeah.
'Cause I
Well, they
did-
probably would have loved more, right?
But they can only
program is-
justify.
The program's 80/20, up to $25,000.
I did go in and view the, tour of the facility, and, I know that they need to fix a window in the front, and he's gotta get his, the awning up.
Yeah, he's also gonna do
Inside.
they're gonna do some lighting changes,
Lighting,
and so
okay.
they're essentially gonna recycle this
Money.
back into
Yeah.
the building, which
Yeah.
is great. I mean, it was a challenge because they did so much of the work on their own, but that creates a real dilemma for, the reimbursement when you don't have any money going out, and it's hard to value something that, although he did a great job, if you're not a professional carpenter, it's hard to value you as one when you provide some
It's
funding.
worth going in to see. They
It
really
is,
did a
absolutely.
nice,
And they've been
really
busy.
did a nice
Yeah,
job, and,
yeah.
I didn't fully understand this business, but there's a lot of people going in there.
Oh,
I don't see you sitting in
gangbusters.
there.
Absolutely gangbusters.
Well, I will say this, they appeal to one of the great things that restaurants have been telling me for the last 2 years, which is, it's great that the city's doing well, but we need foot traffic
Yeah.
activities. you know, and.
Something
you know,
to bring
whether
people
there are
down.
activities down on, in the arena, whether there's activities maybe over on South Street, you know, in a year or so, but things that bring people, you know, other than just going to the restaurant. So I think, you know, outdoor activities in the summer, things in the park, whatever they are, but that's a perfect example, you know, when there's a line going out the door, out around the corner. I mean, when they opened, their grand opening was
Yeah,
just,
right.
I was dumbfounded.
Right.
There's people there even
Yeah.
on other
Well,
days.
she can't keep her stock up,
No,
Yeah,
which is a great problem to have.
yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yes, and, you know, in the end, and I know it was frustrating for Mike when we were going through a lot of this stuff, but, you know, when I tried to get to across, I said, you know, even though it's an odd, you know, because they didn't have a lot of funding, they didn't have a lot of financing, they were running a lot of cash activities, you know, in the end, they're exactly what you really want to try and support in a project like this. I mean, in a program like this, so hopefully this will.
And your brother marveled at the fact that that was the case.
My brother marveled at the fact that there's so many small businesses down here and that there's no chains. When we were walking around he was here in August, and as we were walking about the downtown for a take a bite, he was looking around and said, I don't see any chains here.
Right.
And I said, you know, Burger King down the end there. And
Good Betty's.
I said, even Pizza Hut's gone, you know.
Right.
Yeah, but he's.
And he's right, because we used to have Woolworths and Grants and Ace True Value.
Yeah.
We had national brands in our downtown in the 60s.
Yeah.
They all did suburban flight, and aren't we lucky that things have come back
Yeah,
into those spaces?
and these small businesses are exactly, but they all, you know, they don't have, they don't have armies of accountants, they don't have armies of lawyers, they don't
Right.
have, they don't have a whole national entity behind them sort of saying, this is what you do and we'll make sure you succeed, whatever.
Right.
So it's a wonderful thing to have, but it also means that there's extra steps that we have to take to sort of try and support them.
I was at a retirement party for a former New York State Housing Commissioner in Saratoga who lives in Saratoga, and he told me that he does not eat in Saratoga anymore. He only comes here to eat at our restaurants in downtown Glens Falls.
You get a lot of the people who.
But it would be nice if they had something else they could do while they waited for their table or whatever, like
Right.
a bookstore. Right, so all good, all good.
That's right. Yeah. Well, yeah. If that line starts going the other direction
Yeah.
from the bookstore, they'll be standing right in front of Radici's and pharmacies. They can just go in and get some food.
And not that this is related, but I think all the hockey games have been sold out already.
Really?
Oh, well, yes.
They've been full. The first couple hockey games have already been
Yeah.
sold out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 5,500.
Well, it's funny. I think if I'm on the board of the Feeder Canal Alliance, and we just had to move our date for the beer fest that we do down in the Civic Center or arena, and one of the reasons was because they said, listen, we're planning to be in the playoffs and planning to be.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we
need
last
the
year
ice.
what happened
We
was they
need
said
the ice.
if we are, we're gonna have to pay more because we gotta get rid of the ice and then get the ice back in between. We were scheduled in between games if they got to the playoffs, which they did. Now they're like,
Never mind,
we're
we're not
planning to
doing
be in the
that.
playoffs, so we're not gonna have you. Either that or the cost was so high, they just said, we're gonna charge you this now.
My
And
son
so we
works
pushed it
with
back.
Tim, I can confirm that that's
Yeah.
the case,
Yeah.
right? They are
Sure.
100% planning to go all the way to the end this year.
You bet,
That's right.
you bet. Why plan for anything else?
That's
people?
right.
Right.
And there's no reason not to.
I-
Right.
And they've got a good team, and they've got a lot of people supporting, and it would be great for Glens Falls for that
Right.
to happen. Hockey Town USA. So what we need, did we do the resolution approving?
We did not, so
Okay,
very
we need-
happy that this business had such a great launch. That's
Yep.
good to
Yep.
hear. So we do need a motion to approve
The
the
grant
reimbursement of $20,000.
I'll make the motion to approve the grant disbursement of 20,000 to.
The next
Just
chapter.
one more bookstore.
Just one
Just
more.
one more
One more
chapter.
chapter.
One more chapter.
One more
Well,
bookstore.
between us, we'll all have the name. Okay, and I will second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Payment of bills, Schedule A.
Right, and so the bills this month are 3 Fitzgerald bills, Mark's October payment, the monthly insurance, ditto, traveler's insurance, that's the corporate insurance policy that we have, $20,000 to the just one more chapter, right, we'll get there eventually, and two bills for CT mail. So the total is from the operating account is $8,390.78. The total out of the DRI funding, which we will be talking to you about closing that account relatively soon and moving that money into operating, $4,375, and then $20,000 for just one more check.
And just in terms of the insurance itself, I know some of that had to be related to the buildings that
Correct.
we just sold.
Correct.
So the insurance number's gonna start going down.
Mark's gonna
Correct.
give us a report in
Yeah,
December.
yes,
Okay.
and the report will include what the difference is going to be. So he's calculating when the building got sold and going to go back to Gallagher and say, we sold the building here, you know.
They'll reimburse.
We'll figure out whether it's a reimbursement or whether it's a pay forward
Right.
on other
Okay.
insurances that we have to have.
Okay.
And again, I don't have that information this month. But yes, we'll get it. We anticipate that insurance bill will be cut by about a third.
Okay.
It might be a little bit more depending on, again, what other coverage we need to take on our lease, on our equipment in the new 36L.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the payment of bills as in Schedule A as presented.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll pay the bills. Moving on to project reports and resolutions. First on the agenda, the event and market center update. Anything additional? Jeff?
No, but since you have 36 Inc. update, we could give sort of just a brief update on that. 36 Inc. of course is the 36 Elm space that the LDC will be subletting from the city once the building is completed. We're continuing to have meetings regarding the sort of the committees that the mayor sort of established regarding the makers market, I think we call it, the commercial kitchen, which I'm chairing, if you want to call it, I don't know if it's a committee really, the wayfinding system, and then the overall management of the facility. So we're going to try and sort of keep those meetings going. You know, it's a little tough through the holidays to try and get people together. I just had a meeting with SWBR Architects. The city's enlisted them. They were the architects of record for Bonaccio's project. And so they were sort of familiar with the architectural complexities, particularly surrounding the historic tax credits, as we sort of redesign, or design, I guess, that downstairs space to accommodate this facility. We're still waiting, by the way, to hear from ESD, and we'll hear about the CFA that we applied for the fit out for that building. It's in the city's budget to fit that out, but we have a grant application to cover roughly half that cost. So it's about $1 million budget, close to it, and a grant of about half that. I've also reached out to National Grid to look at some possible help. One of the things that the kitchen crew has discussed is making this a fully electrified building, which is a little bit of a heavier lift with respect to cooking. You know, there's still a latent gas preference for many, but I've got two chefs.
Me.
What's that?
Including me.
No, you're not.
And me.
You're probably the majority, I think. I mean, I think it's a. But two of the chefs we've been talking to are working. One, Matt Bolton, right from SUNY Adirondack, and the other, Jake White, who's opening the new restaurant where Flight was.
Which is under construction.
Which is
They were there last night.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of work. They're hoping to get open before Christmas. But they both think that there's an avenue, although it's a little bit more expensive. So I'm trying to reach out to National Grid to see if they can sort of help us underwrite some of those costs. The other big one, of course, as well, is that we're also trying to make sure the logistics with the basement sort of serve the facility as best it can for any kind of monetization opportunities going forward.
Can you do a gas cooktop?
You can do a gas cooktop. The idea is, can you not do a gas cooktop, I guess, is what we're trying to avoid. There's induction cooking.
You could do electric stove and then.
You can do.
Induction cooking would be way cheaper to insure.
Then.
Yeah.
My
well,
God.
this is the thing
Especially
that
because we're gonna
I haven't
have
tried
different
that.
people renting the facility.
Correct. This is
And
exactly
it
what
would
Jake
be-
said.
That would be brilliant if we can get it so it's good enough to suffice.
Induction cooking apparently, and I'm no expert on this, but just
I
listen to
don't
them.
even know.
It's when you
It's cold to touch.
Yeah, if you pick up the pan, there's no heat.
Yeah, it's
It's like-
it's electrons
It's not like a-
moving at a speed unbeknownst to man.
Yeah.
That creates the heat
up
up
And the
in
pan
certain
becomes the
pans.
cooking,
Yes.
the heat source. No, it's
Oh, yeah,
it's
no,
bizarre.
this is what my daughter wants. So I've been hearing why,
For your home?
well, she thinks it would be good if I did, she visits like 3 days a year, kind of thing. But she thinks it would be good if I did that.
But they're expensive, right? I mean, there's a cost.
Yeah.
I'll come
But
to your house and try it.
The benefit I think the city has.
Don't
is that-
hold your breath. Don't hold your breath. So,
The benefit that the city and the LDC have, I think, is that we're looking at life cycle costs or total costs, right? When you talk about insurance and liabilities and things like that, suddenly, you say, well, if you plug that in, it's difficult for people at home to say, well, I'll just be more careful, right? So I won't burn my house down. Or don't pay, or they don't associate the fact that their insurance rate would go down, $60 a year, whatever it is. If they had this, those are things that households sometimes just don't pay attention to, but that
But it's commercial
institutions
ventures.
can do that and look at it in your calculations.
right.
So at any rate, that's sort of where we're going with that, and I think we're still on a pretty good track.
Great. The Tech Meadows lot sale. Pat, can you speak to this?
Sure, as part of the water sewer agreement that the town and the city came together in 1999, and part of the annexation agreement that the city and the town came together with in 2003, there is a requirement that any project on what we call Tech Meadows go through a design review. It's probably a little bit more than that, but for all intents and purposes, to make sure that the project fits into the model site plan that was created way back when for all of the sites on this property. So I was unable to be there, but my understanding is that you have a packet, in your packet you have a report that talks about the findings of the committee, which is 3 people from the city: the mayor, Jane Reed, Judy Calogero, John Stroud from the town of Queensbury, and Tim McNulty, who I understand was
Couldn't
not
make
there.
it.
Okay, so the committee got together and discussed all of the pieces that were in the that are in the site plan and in the requirements to
And
make
the-
sure that they meet them.
And we did the building plan too, the design of the building
Okay.
as well.
The report came to the LDC that it was acceptable, and so there's no vote that we need. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that that came
So
through.
the process had been fulfilled.
Correct, and so that it is, as you heard earlier, it's moving forward. We're anticipating lots of good things happening, and the next thing on the agenda is something that we also have to discuss with regard to that. So I just wanted to make sure, well, if you have any questions, I think, trying to get a Jane to answer. Since they were both there.
Queensbury also brought their planner with them.
Oh,
It's
Stu
a
Wagner,
so
okay.
it's been reviewed by, it wasn't just our amateur, we'd rather have cream rather than beige, whatever, which is the way we kind of looked at things, but it's been professionally reviewed as well, and blessed. It's a relatively simple design, but there's nothing to fit into other than the pipe fitters, which is actually a stunning piece of property. And they have agreed to keep their plantings within that same concept and whatever, so it's gonna look great.
But for the next site that we sell, I think we should put Tim Larson on it. You would have enjoyed the review, I think. It was interesting.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yes, you would have done more than cream and beige.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But you do have a resolution, I think.
No, we don't have a resolution for this. It's just a report back to the board and to the public that we went through the review process. That the review process was, we went through the review process. That the design was approved and that box is checked, so to speak, and we're moving forward with the next pieces of it, which are the other things we discussed. At the
So
end.
the actual sale will occur at the same time It'll
Well, we have to-
That's-
At 1 close.
That's
Right.
my anticipation, yes, and Karen,
Yeah,
you want
that,
to speak
that
to
would be the
that?
structure. It would close at the same time, so
Yeah.
they'll get the mortgage tax when they're financing, so we'll just do everything at once.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything else that needs to be addressed in that piece? I mean, in the review committee, I mean,
No,
okay.
So we do have a resolution requested to give permission to Crew Coffee access to the site prior to the purchase for them to store building materials.
Oh, yeah.
when I talked to their attorney, they didn't know if it would be if the materials would come in time before the closing, but in the event that they did, they wanted someplace to store them, and knowing that we didn't meet till the 12th,
Yeah, I have no objection as long as they maintain insurance.
Yep.
Okay, we want
Which they-
insurance
Which
in
they did,
place,
right?
so
Yeah,
that,
Sent us
yeah.
insurance policy.
no, they haven't yet, because we haven't proved.
right, but they will.
But they will, yeah.
Oh,
when I
okay,
talk-
that's
Right.
right, sorry.
Yeah,
Yep,
So a resolution to allow access
provided
with,
insurance.
with
proof of
writing
insurance.
requirement that they provide insurance.
Yep.
Someone make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in
And so-
favor?
All right,
Thank
So
you.
that was in your packet too, that resolution itself.
yep.
So, okay, good. Does it make sense to ask them to put a sign up? Can they do that? I mean, can we do that? Does that make sense to ask them if they could? Just so that way, it's clear it's clear that it's development on the property?
Sure.
Okay. New home of Crew Coffee, that's fine.
Well, I would imagine they're gonna wanna put up temporary fencing to,
Sure.
so, yeah.
So if they have something they can hang on that.
Yeah.
What I'm looking at is optics, right? Does it make
Yeah.
sense if they're gonna do that for us to say this is a new project, which is what I think. I don't know why I didn't think about it until this moment, but I think it makes sense to ask them if they would do that. Even as I said, if it's a vinyl
I'll
banner.
reach out to them.
Okay.
Do we have any other business to come before the board?
Yeah, one thing I would like to bring up, last month's meeting, I mentioned, in the course of talking about the small business support program, that there was one other application that we were trying to work through. As you probably know, the Lorella's restaurant went out of business sometime earlier this year. Fairly quickly, there's a new entrant into the field, not terribly new actually, but I wanted to have Mike Fernandez come. Mike is the owner of Tres Mijas. Sorry, my Spanish is not great. But Mike, why don't you come up and I just wanted to have Mike, much as other Mike did last month with the Just One More Chapter, just to talk a little bit about the project that they're doing. As you guys know, there have been a number of restaurants at that location, and there's now a new one. I mean, I think you have some challenges that the location of that, which is just sort of, even though it's in the downtown area generally, it's a little bit off the beaten path. Mike has some experience though that I think sort of lends is going to help you in a lot of different ways. But I wanted to just talk about how you got to this point. You've been obviously had a presence in the city and environment for a while.
Sure.
But then we can just talk a little bit more about what we're trying to do to help you as well.
Sure. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with the food truck. We opened a food truck in 2022 in May. We started out vending in front of the hospital. Started out just kind of as a public business, and then we slowly worked into private events and doing things with local schools, nursing homes and such. So we kind of bounced around. We've noticed that the business has grown to a point where we can't really sustain it with just the food truck. So we looked to expand. We looked at a few different places, but we kind of found that this Lorella space when it opened seemed to be the best fit for us. And we just don't really feel that the location is necessarily a hindrance, I guess you could say. I think it's just needs to be utilized in the right way and have the right sort of business in there. And I think that we are the correct fit.
Do you? I mean, when you how are you going to operate this vis-a-vis the truck? Are you still going to operate the food truck? Does this support that? I mean, how does that?
We will use the food truck most likely, but our current plan is just to shrink wrap it and leave it for the wintertime. We have vended through the wintertime in the past, and it's not a very profitable business.
Or very warm.
Or very warm, correct. Things don't like to function too well outside in that cold. So,
Well, one thing I know is that you do have a pretty good social media presence, and without judging any of the previous owners of that space, you know, I mean, because it doesn't have quite the foot traffic necessarily that you have like people downtown, you know, it seems like you have to sort of get the word out to people in different ways.
Sure.
When you're a food truck, you don't even have a specific location necessarily, so you really gotta let people know who like your stuff, where you are and what you're doing and how you're gonna be. So I think there's probably some big advantages there.
I agree.
You know, one of the other things, and we've talked about this previously, and one of the reasons I wanted Mike to come, you know, we've been trying to sort of work through some of the challenges that this space has presented. We had some support for the previous owner. The challenge we had, you know, in a couple of past cases, we've been able to sort of directly transfer the obligations, if you will, from one to the other. This was complicated in this case by a couple of different things. One is that these grants, these are separate grants, right? The original funding that was provided was DRI funding for the, what's it called, the program? A GF Drive program, which has concluded. So it's not an easy thing to just sort of move it from one to the other, because the funding that we do have available is now this sort of post-COVID or slash SBS funding. So that was complicated. The other thing that was complicated by this particular project is that a lot of the equipment that Trace Niehaus is looking to use is not the same equipment that the previous owner was using. So it wasn't just an easy, yeah, we're just going to use this same equipment. That was compounded by the fact that the previous owner removed the equipment anyway, and so it wasn't easily recoverable. We're going to have to work on that, and I've been in contact with him. So I think we have an avenue to sort of recover those funds, if you will. But you know, it just points to, when we're looking at the space, why it wasn't sort of as clean a transition as we've had in some of these previous programs. It is much easier in the sense that, unlike just one more chapter where we're trying to sort of navigate all the different ways that they were looking to get funding, Mike's and his group are really looking at equipment. So it's we've gotten prices for equipment. We just got some follow-up stuff just the other day. But you know, so I think this is in that sense, cleaner application that I think we could sort of come up with to look at that.
When do you hope to
You're
open?
open.
Well,
Yeah, nobody cares about anything else.
the part of the problem is really this funding. I kind of thought that I'd be on the agenda this month, and so I'm really I'm at a stop now. I have to do the certificate of occupancy, which is $750. I have a staff that I brought on tentatively to help me build the kitchen and structure it the way they wanted it. I bought both of them from Radici. But now I'm in a point where I'm not going to be able to start payroll and get them moving forward until it's next month. So I don't really.
Why would it be next month? Likely can't wait.
Well, unless we can resolve to agree to, I mean, we have to sort of modify the application with the equipment just that we just got. If we can make a tentative resolution to?
Well, but we can't write the check without it being on Schedule A, right? That's the process. So it would have to.
You could
so-
authorize that.
We can authorize signature of this amount, as long as we, right?
I'm okay with that, right? I just want to
Right.
make sure that we're, you know,
Yeah.
all compliant as we need to be.
Right, so,
Can,
Yeah, they can.
so we have the
Yeah, they can do
documentation right now that could allow us, I
Excellent.
think it's $20,000 that we can get, very similar, so if we
So
can get
do
a
a check up to that amount.
yep,
Okay.
contingent.
If you're okay with that, I'm
Contin-
fine.
Contingent
So,
upon,
and I haven't
the budget being
reviewed.
finalized.
I haven't reviewed the application. yet,
right.
Right. 'cause it
Contingent
hasn't
upon
gotten to the point where it comes
the
to.
application meetings, you know, meeting our standard, then a check up to the amount of $20,000.
So this
to
would
be
be a
issued.
similar application format that you had for
Just
the
one-
bookstore.
Just one more
Just one
chapter.
chapter.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
and as I said, from a documentation standpoint, much cleaner.
Okay.
Excellent.
We have
Right.
several pieces of equipment, we have
We
a
know
couple
they add
quotes for
up.
each one.
Right.
There's much of which you've already purchased, right?
Everything's
Right,
already
so it's
installed,
just
yeah.
looking for the reimbursement at this point.
Yep,
So.
great,
Yeah, we ran out of time in the process to get a lot of the paperwork settled.
Well, I couldn't get it
in
on
order
the
to make sure
agenda,
that we
and I
could
didn't
bring it
want
to the board.
So
Right.
so the individual who's gonna be signing the check, and there'll be two individuals from the board signing the check, it's usually the mayor and myself. that they should see the final copy of the application and the budget. form.
Understood, okay.
And then we can get that done as soon as we
And
can.
do that,
then, and then you could sign a check
Absolutely.
up to $20,000.
Thank you for all hearing that tonight.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate the forthrightness. It makes total sense to us.
So why don't
And
you
we
give
can't
us a
wait to show up.
resolution right now and I'll make it. Just say.
Well, I can't make a resolution.
I just made that
So,
resolution.
yeah.
All right, so what's the
I
name
need
of
to
the
spell it out, I
project?
think.
Give
What's
me-
that?
What are we calling the project?
Tres Mijas Small Business Support Grant.
Grant.
SBS grant.
Will be up
right.
to 20,000. Okay. All
And
right,
Karen
I'll
make
second
look
it.
nice.
All in
Right.
favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions?
Okay,
Motion carries.
There we
You're
go.
Thank you very
Is it
much.
going to be a sit-down restaurant?
Yes.
Or, oh.
Sit down.
That is so awesome.
I can
Okay, so
post
now,
that.
okay, we changed the question. Now when are you gonna open?
Right.
As soon as we get that CO,
Right.
you get that. Yeah.
Yeah, are you making, I know you ran into some problems with that. There was, but I think that was just misunderstandings, right?
Yeah, it was a
Okay, I
misunderstanding.
mean, I know, well, when I say that, I mean, there were some challenges with getting the certificate of occupancy, and the people you needed to talk to weren't available when.
They
you
were just
did
under
it.
the impression for some reason that I was building from the ground up.
Right.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, I don't know why that. They,
Well, I think, what I had heard from
we're
someone.
gonna
is they
knock
thought
down
there
that
was
building.
Yeah,
and
you're
redo it.
Major construction going on, and the strange thing was,
Oh,
you
Peter's
know,
agreed to
is
tear
that you had
the
gotten
whole
from
thing
information from Peter Hoffman, who, you know, was on the planning board with another project right around, in the same building. So clearly Peter knew what constituted, you know, you need to go in front of the planning board. Anyway, that sounds like that
it's been
problem.
resolved, yes. Yep.
Great.
So, and just administratively, when we get that agreement done with the former owner, we will sort through, since that grant is closed, we may need to send it back to the state.
Yeah, well, that's
So-
okay.
So I'm
As
just
long-
letting you know, right, so that we'll have to see what is acceptable and approvable, because we're looking at returning money on a grant that's already been closed. So we'll have to, once we get the agreement signed and dealt with, then we have to figure out administratively what that means.
Right, but that doesn't affect this project.
No, it doesn't,
Right,
nope, nope, I
right.
just wanted to
Right.
put that as an
Understood.
add, and
Thank you.
since it was raised.
I go sometime.
And we'll try and expedite that to the extent humanly possible.
Yep,
Do we have any other business? Our next meeting is December 12th.
Be here before we know it.
And do I have a motion to adjourn?
please
So
don't say
moved.
things like that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. You did a great job, Denise.
I love
Right.
having 2 minutes of.
Yeah, you don't want to be too competent though.
Right, watch out. Right. Thank